Welcome to Mintel's Little Conversation podcast.
Hello and welcome to Mintel's Little Conversation, where our experts bring you fresh ideas and new perspectives on how consumers eat, drink, shop, groom and think. Each episode features a discussion of current topics, from the latest consumer trends and new products to shifts in markets and lifestyles. I'm Andrew McDougall, Associate Director of Beauty and Personal Care at Mintel, and the other day I sat down with Jack Duckett, the Associate Director of our Lifestyle Reports, and Alex Fisher, the Associate Director of our UK Beauty Reports, to discuss senior consumers. So let's listen to that conversation. How are you both doing today?
Yeah, I'm great. Thanks for asking. How about you?
Good. I didn't have another response for if you said you weren't doing good, so I'm glad that you did.
Good thing we're all happy here.
But as I said at the start, today I did want to focus a little bit more on the older consumer, because I think, particularly in the beauty industry, but I think in consumer goods in general, and in lifestyles, we seem to have this huge fixation on younger consumers. You know, the Generation Z, the Millennials. But there is a lot to be said for targeting slightly older consumers, and also we don't want to forget them as well. But it is this idea of looking at their behaviours. We're talking about sort of senior consumers over 65s, but maybe even slightly younger than that, over 55s. It's quite an intriguing demographic, and I just wanted to sort of open that up for discussion, because we are always so fixated on the younger ones.
I think just to start off with, it's obviously the younger consumers, our sort of millennials, are actually kind of the biggest group at the moment in terms of demographics, in terms of the generation. So I think that's why they're a really important demographic to capture. But I think the thing is that in the wish to sort of appeal to all of these younger consumers, some senior consumers kind of just get left by the wayside, and there's not a lot out there for them, especially in terms of beauty. Jack, I don't know if you've got anything to add to that.
Yeah, it's tricky. So millennials are such a huge group, and if we add in Gen Z after them, straight after, we get roughly sort of 40% of the population. So it's no wonder they're such an important target for brands. But it's important remembering that the over 65s, or baby boomers alone, in fact, are the second biggest population group in the UK. And so they are hugely valuable to brands. And it's definitely worthwhile trying harder to target this group and to engage with them on a better level.
Yeah, I think that, as you were saying, that even as they're the second biggest group, their spending power is huge. I think we tend to forget the fact that a lot of these consumers are we're expecting to have grandchildren by this point potentially, but now that a lot of people are having children later, we're not seeing this happen as much, and therefore they've got a lot of kind of extra money to spend, extra time, etc. So we need to treat them differently to maybe how we have done in the past. And I think the way we have treated them in the past is to think of them as sort of old fuddy-duddies and something like that.
Absolutely, yeah. The notion of this older consumer is really behind us. We have a very strong idea of what it means to be an old person. They're elderly, they're a senior. And this is a really outdated concept. The older people we have today, for want of a much better expression, the over 55 market, are so much more dynamic than we've ever seen in the past. Many of them expecting to live for much longer than in the past. So many of them still in work. A bugbear of mine is, if we look at messages of convenience, I think whether in the beauty market or the food and drink market, they've been so heavily focused on younger audiences. Younger audiences are busier, they have more going on in their lives. So we've targeted this group relentlessly with messages of convenience. But actually, if you think about older groups, many of them staying in work now into their later 60s, early 70s and beyond. Many of them have busy family lives. They're still picking up from grandchildren, etc. It's really important this group also feel that brands are engaging with them on things they're busy with. We're getting those messages across to them, how they can help them save time.
I also think as well it's really interesting that they're not actually that different as well to sort of a lot of the younger consumers. Like when we look at sort of certain lifestyle choices, I mean, you mentioned earlier about them working for longer, and we see older consumers being active for longer, and we see people looking at health and wellness as trends anyway. So we see people are healthy, they are living longer. But also there's always this misconception that technology, that's for the young people. But actually older people are using technology, just maybe not as much, maybe they're not on Snapchat, but they're on Facebook. They are using social media, they are using digital.
Absolutely.
So I think there is this massive comparison which is very similar and opens up a huge opportunity to target these people, because I think right now they are a little bit underserved. There's sort of these token ranges that do very well at communicating certain benefits to age-specific consumers. But there really needs to be more choice, more variety, more competition, really, because I think sometimes this consumer isn't overlooked, but they're not that different to their younger counterparts. I mean, in beauty, we know that they still use beauty products. It's still important for them. There's an anti-aging conversation that maybe we can get onto in a bit as well, about sort of changing this view.
Absolutely, yeah.
And looking at maybe a more positive version. But I definitely think that it's a consumer that we can tap into a lot.
Yeah, I mean, Alex, have you seen many examples of social media campaigns in the beauty market that have been aimed at this demographic? I'd imagine not too many, but
it's really difficult. Yeah, there's not a lot of examples. I think one brand that's actually doing really, really well at this is L'Oreal. We've seen sort of their Golden Squad advertising. So talking about they've put together kind of a group of older, sort of more famous women, but it's about the diversity within that group as well. It's not just having a single spokesperson who is over the age of 50 and saying this represents all women above that age. They've got people like Jane Fonda, they've got Julianne Moore, so in very different stages of their lives, and it's showing that diversity within the older generation as well, because previously any campaigns we have seen that feature older women feature just one woman, or they kind of are constantly, as you said, looking at that anti-aging rather than looking at the kind of, well, what makes me feel comfortable at my age conversation.
Diversity is a really nice one to come on to there. You've made my day. Diversity is a really important, obviously, message in marketing at the moment. It's not just a message, it's a movement, as we've realised that we are perhaps not doing as good as we should be when it comes to reflecting the diversity of the UK population as broadly as we'd like. And I think we're making huge progress in that area. I think definitely there's been so many campaigns, amazing campaigns, that have shown the diversity of the UK population. But, as you've pointed out, not only are older consumers often forgotten from marketing campaigns, but worse yet, when they are remembered, there's no sense of the huge diversity that exists within this cohort. And it's a real shame, because we've got this idea that only the young are diverse, only the young are interested in diversity. And it's shying away from this sort of idea that there's inherent sort of backwardness about the over 55s. And there's no need to believe that. We had some lovely research for the over 55s lifestyles report this year, which showed that 51% of all over 55s believe they've become more open-minded as they've got older. So I really think this is an amazing opportunity to springboard off that, to show just how diverse they are, to engage with them about the different parts of their population. We know that people of different races don't end at 40. This is something that happens all the way through an adult population. Exactly. So we need to reflect that better and show off the different lifestyles we see amongst our older population and get a much better engagement that way.
I think when you look at younger consumers, they almost have this kind of herd mentality that we always grew up around other people, we had other groups, and people it's almost a bit sort of patronising, really, to sort of think that, as you were saying earlier, about like diversity just stopping at 40
Absolutely.
or 50 or 60, because we're talking about sort of the baby boomers or the senior consumers. I mean, these are team builders. These are people that are trying to bring everyone together to talk about the same goal. Yep. So they are still used to working with other people. It's just in a slightly different way to what we see as relevant right now, but it still is relevant. I guess that's my point. So it's interesting to see how we could do a lot more to target this consumer.
Definitely. I think just when we're looking at the examples of kind of product innovation in beauty that we see, for millennials versus the kind of stuff that we see for senior consumers. So millennials, everyone's slapping a hashtag on, the front of a product name, or they're using sort of millennial pinks and unicorns and mermaids and things like that. And for the senior consumer, we see a lot of kind of dowdy packaging, and everything's always anti-age, make yourself look younger.
Cover that grey, hide that wrinkle.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's the same.
And as you were saying, Jack, these women and these people are sort of very open-minded, and they are, interested in that more fun aspect, but there's nothing out there for them. I think, and even within that age group, as we were saying, the blanket message is anti-age, and we're talking about, women from their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. We're talking about, very different skin needs, very different needs in general for each of these groups, but they're all being lumped together and said, look younger. And, for a 70-year-old, looking 40 would be a lot younger. So, you can't pass the same message on to every group within sort of a senior
It's a confusing message in beauty as well, I find, because it's like when we've sort of seen some data, it's all about sort of there are a certain number of consumers that want to deal with the signs of aging, so they do want to, they are looking to combat those signs of aging, but at the same time we also see people are a lot happier now with grey hair, and they're a lot happy with celebrating their age. So it's not about just banishing and, like you say, going back to this better 20-year-old version of yourself.
Exactly.
It's about,
I wasn't better at 20.
No, exactly.
I'm blossomed already.
I'm hoping my better years are ahead of me. But it is that kind of idea that we need to change them. It doesn't have to be complex, it can be simple. But, if I'm a brand, how do I target the senior consumer without being patronising and condescending? Because that seems to be sometimes the message that comes through. There's elements of tokenism behind some of the ranges that come out. But then there are also some brands that do it superbly. You mentioned L'Oreal earlier.
Yes.
There's a hair colour brand or hair care range, White Hot,
yes,
here in the UK, who do things very well. And it's all about celebrating. And again, celebrating, but not in a patronising way.
Yeah. I mean, I think as we've got much better across all CPG goods in realising that brands can't just sit in their sector. It's about breadthening your brand to appeal across a lifestyles angle, showing how it fits across someone's different parts of people's lives. And what I think is particularly important is that we've got really stuck on this bandwagon that looking 20 is the goal for absolutely everyone, and that's the be all and end all of it. And in fact, there is so much more to the lifestyles of over 55s, whether that's being more adventurous, it's going out more, enjoying new hobbies. And from a beauty brand perspective, it's actually less about showing how can you look younger permanently, much more about how can you fit your brand to the various looks that might be needed for this lifestyle. How can you fit your products to fit in with their busy schedule, or with their needs as a grandparent, or with their needs in the workforce. It's a much more varied applicator, for a slightly strange word for beauty, in terms of the application of how you put out these products. There's so many more options. In fact, it should be easier, is sometimes what I think, than in the past.
I definitely agree. I mean, for example, we're seeing a lot of skincare brands for sort of older consumers, but you don't see a lot of makeup brands for older consumers, because there's the suggestion that women over a certain age don't want to wear makeup because they're sort of crouching down, hiding behind, their younger selves. They don't actually want to, be seen by the world, and that's absolutely not true. So I think, there are some ranges out there, such as L'Oreal have brought out their Age Perfect, so from their skincare range, but now applying it to makeup. And because there are so many different skin needs behind these older women as well, so the makeup therefore can work for them in that respect as well. So there's not enough examples of these, and the fact that L'Oreal are managing to champion this in so many ways shows that there's definitely room for a lot of other brands to do this. We're just not seeing them.
And I think you touched on a good point as well about sort of there not being many makeup brands for older consumers. And this element of when did fun stop? Like, what age does fun stop? What age do we stop using entertainment and fun to engage with people? I mean, we know from the data that we've looked at that older consumers, they like using beauty products because it makes them feel more attractive. It makes them feel more confident. The figures are very similar to millennials, for example.
Very.
And we also know that they tap into the same trends that we look at as well. For example, things like cruelty-free, sort of animal cruelty, things like that are very important. A lot of environmentally friendly issues. They still resonate with older consumers, yet we always just presume that that's something that we just target younger consumers at.
It's really, I feel very passionately about this one. People have an idea that fun is just something for the young. Once you've had children settle down, live the rest of your life, fun goes out the window. And I'm sure Alex will back me up. There's so many campaigns that are really fun aimed at millennials. That's so exciting, engaging. But these disappear. And actually, when we look at baby boomers and the generation above, the swing generation, these are groups that are in the prime of their life in so many ways. They've worked very hard. They've, in many cases, developed some financial stability, but very aware they have a future ahead of them that could be expensive. They've got possibly other generations reliant on them financially or time-wise. They are a group that need that fun just as much as anyone. And actually, as people get older, if anything, they want to enjoy life, what's left of life. It could be 20, 30 years, but there's a realization that comes that life is a finite concept, and it's about enjoying it. And I really think that when it comes to engaging with older generations, the more fun, the better. This is a group that will really respond to fun experiences, new experiences. They're an adventurous group.
Definitely. I think there's, especially in beauty, and we talk about how much millennials really love to try different trends. it's we don't see kind of the same amount of experiences out there for these older women. So millennials are out there really enjoying trying new trends, but older women say that they don't like to try new trends, but purely because there's sort of no way for them to do it.
Yeah, and it's that buy-in, because it's interesting you mentioned about like the new trends and things, because you look at some of the new trends we see now, and a lot of the stuff that as a beauty team, and obviously as Mintel anyway, when we speak to people about certain trends, things like the health and wellness trends are so big right now.
Oh yeah,
and especially we're talking about younger consumers. We're talking about in beauty, talking about oral products, supplements, as well as obviously topical supplements to help things like pollution or help with aging and things like that. So we see this as such a big target, but surely this older consumer is a great target for that as well. This idea that this is a consumer that has been monitoring their health. They are living longer because they are being healthier. So again, this is a consumer that in a way wouldn't take much buy-in and wouldn't take much targeting if we were to make a specific, tailored, personal sort of target of this older consumer who is going to be, dare I say, already tapped into this wellness trend. It's just they may just feel like they're being left out right now.
Gut health, I think, was one of the things where that's something that's become a real important trend at the moment. And when I think back, even just sort of 10 years at when I used to think about gut health, for me, I used to think, well, that's old people drinking prune juice. And so, but as in, that's a real trendy movement now, and we're really targeting the young. But that's something that's, almost become part and parcel of, as you grow older, you've got to take better care of yourself. You've got to sort of do these things to make sure that you can live your life to the fullest. And so, as you said, the idea that maybe we target the young, sort of younger consumers with all of this, we're missing out on a huge market here.
Yeah, I mean, in particular, there's the health and wellbeing market's sort of multifaceted, and there's one part of it in particular that struggles. If you look across the Mintel data, you'll see that older generational groups are very good with diet in particular. They're very good with getting fruit and vegetables. They're good on portion control. It's a group that actually indexes very well on those things. But one area that you really see them fall down in is fitness and exercise, regularly failing to meet the targets set out for this group. Now, what's interesting about that is that as fitness has boomed as a trend in recent years, we have pigeonholed it. We've made it believe that exercise and fitness is purely aimed at the young. And I think looking forward, what I would like to see more of is an open up of that, allowing everyone to see that health and fitness is important no matter what stage you're at in life. And it comes in so many different formats, but it's important no matter how old you are. And actually creating new ways of exercising, showcasing that and bringing people together. It's such a wonderful way of doing so many things. It'll tackle loneliness, it'll get people being more active, it'll keep people fitter and healthier for longer. And I think exercise really does hold the keys to a very cohesive future.
I think it's interesting as well, because when we talk, I mean, we've done it ourselves today when we've sort of talked about old people. You just group it all together.
Exactly.
And I don't mean to cause any offence by using the term old people, but it is that case that even once you get to, I mean, 55 isn't old, but that's sort of over 55, over 65, over 75. They're just all kind of grouped together as old people. Whereas I think there probably needs to be more segmentation there. No, then like if I'm 60, I'm going to have much different beauty, health, and just personal needs than I will if I'm 70 or 75. Plus, I know some 80-year-olds who can run a lot longer than I can. So again, it is this idea that I think there needs to be more segmentation, again going into that idea of inclusivity, and sort of really recognising that this isn't just one generation we just tar with one brush and say thank you very much, there's your products. So as a brand then, how do we engage it and not in a condescending way?
It's interesting that you brought up the brand White Hot earlier on. I think so. They this year decided to bring on, I think it was 6 new models, and so they're all models that have never done any modelling before, and all they've done is kind of bring women out from kind of everyday situations, but they've all got different sort of variations in terms of the greying of their hair. So some have completely white hair, some are only just starting to turn grey, some have long hair, some have short hair, in a bid to kind of almost level the playing field and show that this brand can be used for all of those different things. And so it is about showing that additional diversity within the group, I think, especially in marketing activity.
Yeah, diversity in representation at this point for any group is going to be key, that we can show better a representation of how we get at different people. It is the basic way of making people feel more included. But I think going beyond that, when it comes to targeting, for want of a better word, these older generational groups, it's about, as you said, about social media. It's about using different channels, just in being more inventive with the way we look to engage with them. We've got an idea that the odd advert on TV with a very elderly person for a stair lift is the only way to talk to anyone over 55. And there's so much more invention that brands, that advertisers can have with their formats, with the channels they use, with the types of campaigns, the experiences they offer. The world is your oyster for millennials. That's an agreed concept. It's the same for the over 55s. This is a fun group. Have fun with it.
No, you're definitely right. And I think diversity and inclusivity is now almost becoming an expectation rather than just a trait. It's something that we're all having to include in our communication and in our brand ethos. It has to be part of the attitude. It has to be genuine. It has to be authentic. And it is ultimately that's going to make the best connection with people. I think we have unfortunately just run out of time for today.
No.
Thank you so much. I know we probably could have talked for a lot longer.
Hours.
And we will talk for a lot longer on another day, on another topic. But for now, thank you very much for your insights today. Thank you very much for listening. To learn more about Mintel, the world's leading market intelligence agency, or any of the topics that we've discussed today, head over to mintel.com and be sure to subscribe to Little Conversation wherever you get your podcasts.